Hey, it's Carl Cruz, and I'm here with former UFC fighter BJJ black belt Thomas Dean. What's going on, man?
Hey man, how are you, man? I'm just trying to stay safe during these troubled times.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, start off. I've always wanted to know how often do people get your name mixed up? How many times do they call you Din instead of Dean? Does that happen?
Almost every time. But it's been like that my entire life, so I'm kind of used to it now, and half the time I don't even correct them.
So, if someone says, "Hey, Din," you're just like, "Okay, whatever."
Yeah, that's just what it is. I'm Din that day.
All right. Now, how did you get into MMA? Where did your interest spark to learn martial arts?
Well, it's it was back in 1994, and I hate to date myself that far back, but that's when it happened. I was in high school. That was my senior year in high school. Actually, it was '93 when I first saw it. My junior year in high school, my sister showed me this videotape of the Ultimate Fighter or the Ultimate Championship, Fighting Championship number 2, I think it was, and immediately I was like, I gotta learn how to do that someday. I gotta figure out how this little guy is beating up these big people because I was like 110 pounds, and I was like, I gotta figure out how he's beating up these people because I never want to get beat up in the street.
And now, is that what really inspired you to learn BJJ?
Yeah, that's what it was. It was like because I mean it wasn't MMA back then. It was like you did BJJ or you did wrestling or you did kickboxing. But BJJ was like the number one thing because like it's what the little guy was using to beat everybody with. Hoist Gracie was using to beat everybody with it. So I did my own research and I figured out how to learn it on my own.
Now, how did you go by finding your first fight? I've asked some other fighters this question, and some of the responses were kind of crazy. They were like, back then when I first fought, my first fight, I didn't even know who I was fighting at first. There was no weigh ins, there was no blood work. Do you have any crazy first couple fight stories?
Oh yeah, well back then, God, I sound like an old man already, but you're right about that. So back then, um, it was very sparse, and there was these organizations like as an amateur, it was like amateur shoot fighting. So you would just kind of show up and do like tournaments, and then you'd get to see people in these tournaments. And then by the time I moved to Orlando, which was like 1998, um, then they started like throwing like actual MMA events, but they called them Vale Tudo events at the time or NHB events. And you're right, like you didn't know who you were fighting. You just showed up. They might have told you a couple of different guys that you might be fighting. But my very first fight, I ended up fighting a guy. He was 250 pounds. He was a former football player at Bethune-Cookman University. And I showed up because the guy they wanted me to fight didn't show up, and the only guy left was this big football player. And I ended up fighting him and winning. It was in the Tampa Valley Tudo in like 1990. It was 98. So yeah, that's my
Now, what,
first fight.
what was going through your mind? Were you just like, okay, well, I'm here, might as well just do it?
Yeah, well, like I said, like to fight a guy 250 pounds, or he's about what was he? No, he's about 220, 225. To fight him like wasn't uncommon because like I was used to watching Hoist Gracie fight big guys. So I was like, this is what I'm trained to do. No weight limits. That's what we're trained to do. Like now it's like, if a guy misses weight by 4 pounds, it's a big deal. But back then it was like that's what we did. It didn't matter.
That's a pretty wild story, but a lot of people know you from Dana White's Looking for a Fight. How did that all come about? How did you end up joining that show?
So well, me and Matt were good friends just because I mean we fought back in 2004, and then we did the Ultimate Fighter together back in 2006. So me and Matt were good friends. We've been good friends for 15 years. Um, so and I was actually in the gym working with Amanda Nunez because she was preparing for Misha Tate to win to Misha Tate for the title fight, and I was in the gym working with Amanda, and I got a phone call from a 702 number, and I don't know anybody in Vegas that's been calling me. So I just, I thought it might have been a spam call. So I clicked off on it, hung up on it. Then next thing I know, Matt called me. Matt Serra called me, goes, "Hey man, Dana's looking for you." I'm like, what? I said, "What? What's he want with me?" He said, "Just pick up the phone when he calls." And so then he called back, and I said, "Hello," and it was Dana. He's like, "Hey, you ever heard of Looking for a Fight? You ever seen it?" I was like, "Yeah," even though I'd never seen it. But he was like, "Well, the other guy who was on the show, he dropped out. and we need another guy. And I was like, well, cool, I'm in. And he was like, but you got to leave tomorrow. And I was like, well, send me the ticket. I got a bag packed in the car, and that's how it started.
So you hung up on Dana White essentially.
Yeah, I hung up on Dana White. And I've never done that since. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. When Dana calls, you answer the phone.
Yeah, I'm sure. So now when I watch the show, it looks like you guys are having a blast. I mean, the show's absolutely hilarious. It's one of my favorite things on YouTube. Is it as much fun as we think it is? Like when you're just shooting the show, are you having a blast?
Yeah, we are. I mean, it might even be, it's more fun because, they can't capture everything. I mean, we shoot for, in a 30-minute episode, they're like 26 minutes probably. We shoot for 3 days. And it's a lot of stuff that you guys don't get to see. And then even when we're not shooting, well, we're a little bit older now, but when I first joined the show, like we would go out and when filming was over, we'd go out and have a drink or so, and have a good time afterwards. But nowadays we're like, oh, I'm tired from filming all day. But we have a great time, man. I mean, it's rare that we're not having a good time. Especially, I gotta tell you that when we shot in Abu Dhabi, that might have been the best time of my life.
Yeah, that looked Abu Dhabi. I've never been there, but that looks like just a wonderful place. But how did you and Matt get to be such good friends? Like you said, you guys fought. After that, after fighting somebody, or were you just like, okay, well, we already fought, let's just be friends? Like, how did that all come about?
Because we were like enemies. Like before we fought, this is like when the internet first got big. Like this was like in the mid 2000s. So the internet wasn't as big as it is now, but it was when it first started getting bigger. And I just remember like being on these chat rooms and maybe like the underground forum or whatever, and going at it with Matt's students. Like his students would always heckle me and pick on me and make fun of me, and I would try to get them back, and they would just clown me to death. So like I had a problem with Matt for whatever reason it was. Like we just didn't like each other. And then after we fought, it got worse. But then it wasn't until we were going to be on The Ultimate Fighter, we went to the little casting call and little physicals. And I remember walking around the mall with him just because we had to. And then we go, you know what, man, let's just kind of talk this out. Next thing I know, we both got picked to be on the show, Ultimate Fighter. We became roommates. And then it's been like that ever since, man. We're just like the best of buddies now.
One thing that I've noticed by watching the shows and reading stuff online is for some reason people like to mess with Matt Serra. I mean, I don't really know what it is. And I was seeing one story you were telling about you guys at a pizzeria, and some guy tried to come up and try to mess with Matt Serra. Why do you think he gets that sort of treatment?
I don't know what it is. There's something about him that people just want to fight him. I mean, not only that, but I mean, it was actually the episode in San Diego, or maybe no, it was in Los Angeles, where like this old guy just tried to talk trash to him. And then I remember actually being in San Diego. We were at the 7-Eleven, and some dude tried to talk trash to him. It's just wherever we go, for whatever reason it is, people look at Matt and think they just want to fight him.
And now, he's absolutely hilarious. I think he's probably one of the more funnier people on this planet.
He is. He really is. There's no doubt about that.
Can Matt Serra go a conversation, or let's say a minute in a conversation, without using some sort of F-bomb in there?
No. And that he can't do that either. So like that's Matt Serra. Like that's just who he is. So there's certain things about Matt, like he can't not curse, and he can't not sing. He's always singing, and he's just the funniest guy. He's always on. I was talking to Eve Edwards the other day about Matt, and I was just like, he's always on. Like he doesn't shut off. It's weird. It just doesn't shut off with him.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think you, Dana, and Matt, you guys should have your own television show forever. I mean, you guys are just comedic gold. I absolutely love it. But let's move on from looking to a fight, and let's talk about training. Why do you enjoy training fighters so much?
I enjoy problem solving and puzzles. I like the idea of like solving this mystery, and that's just, and even as a fighter, that was what I always approached the fight was, you answer problems with answers and not more problems. So as a coach, when I look at an opponent, I go, all right, here's the problem. I have to solve this problem with this fighter. Like what tools from this fighter can I use in order to solve this problem and to finish this problem? So, I mean, to me, it's math. It's like solving a math equation. And I enjoy doing that part of it. Like, it's a very intellectual thing for me.
And now, do you think that fighters in this day and age should be training year round? It seems like back in the day when MMA was first coming up, fighters would only really train during their training camp. They would take some months off, then they would try to get back into it. To be the best, do you think you need to train year round now?
Yeah, I believe so because there's just too much involved. There's too many ways to lose. There's too many mistakes that you can make in this game where it won't work in your favor. So I believe that fighters should train year round and at least be learning year round. It's like their education. Like you can't stop learning. You can't stop your education of fighting. It doesn't mean you have to train hard year round, but you have to continue your education year round, or else you're going to fall behind.
Now, one of your guys that you train is Mr. Tyron Woodley. How tough was it? How tough was it for you to see his fight coming up get postponed? I know this was his first fight back and had a really tough, good training camp. How difficult was that for you to watch?
Well, I'm a very optimistic person, and I always try to look for the benefits, and I haven't found them yet. I haven't found it yet. So, I mean, God is telling us something. I don't know what it is yet, but that was tough because there was a lot involved in making that camp happen. Tyron left to, I mean, again, like this guy hasn't been working for a year. He hasn't fought in a year, so financially, he was looking forward to that money. I mean, I was looking forward to get paid. So, everybody in camp was looking forward to it, and it costs a lot of money to run a training camp. You got to bring people in, you got to feed everybody. So, just from a financial standpoint, it was a big hit. And then, just the idea that Tyron can't get back into the mix is a big hit because, it's just frustrating, to go through a camp and I was in the camp with him. Like I was training with him and grinding with him. So for him to not have a chance to showcase his skills really was frustrating. And it was up to the last minute too. I mean, we were really, at the last minute cutting our teeth trying to make this happen, but it couldn't work.
And now Tyron Woodley, obviously one of the best welterweights ever to fight in the UFC. One of the fights that I think a lot of people really was like, wow, this guy is unreal, was the Darren Till fight. And after the Darren Till fight, you were able to present Tyron with his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. For you as a coach, how great of a feeling and moment was that?
Yeah, that was, I called that shot. And that was kind of I'm big into manifesting things into your life, and for whatever reason, I manifested that to happen. I firmly believe that. Like we had practiced a lot of jujitsu for that fight, and Tyron had been a brown belt for 5-6 years, but for that fight, we practiced a lot of jujitsu. So I said, I just knew in my head, I said he's gonna submit this guy, and then I'm gonna give him his black belt. So I actually left camp, bought him a black belt, brought it back to camp, and then took it to the fight because I knew he was going to submit Darren Till. I was that confident that I brought a belt to the fight just because I knew it was going to happen.
And now, being a coach, after seeing him submit Darren Till, are you kind of like, oh wow, that was all me? That was all me?
No. I mean, it's not me. That's one thing I can say is it's never me. In fact, that was, I'm sure we're going to talk about this, but I'm sure that's kind of one of the reasons why, I left American Top Team because it's never really me. And not that I want it to be, but I want it to be more of a part of me because at the end of the day, like it really is the fighter that does the job. It's just me trying to instill the confidence in them or give them the tools in order to do the better job.
Now, has training fighters allowed you to make good relationships and friendships with these athletes?
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing too. Is that I particularly only like to train people that I have a relationship with, that I'm friends with, because I believe in that chemistry. Again, like so, I'm a problem solver. I like to solve puzzles. So, when I'm working with a fighter, I have to enjoy that person because I like to invest in them and put a lot of time into them. And I don't just do it for money. I mean, trust me, I left a reliable paycheck during a time like this where we might be going through a depression. I left a reliable paycheck because I didn't want to work with people that I don't know or like. I only want to work with people that I like, that I want to invest in.
And now I think one fighter that you have a relationship with is Ben Askren. I was seeing a story online. Is it true that your dog bit Ben Askren?
Yeah, that is true. I had a little Chihuahua, and I've known Ben for a long time. Like, in fact, like his very first MMA fight. I was headlining that card. It was Ben Askren on the card, Tyron Woodley, and Neil Magny was fighting as an amateur on this card that I headlined in Missouri. But so I had known Ben for a long time, and he came to stay with me one time, and my dog just bites me when it bit Ben in his foot.
That's actually a pretty funny story. Now, lastly, we're going to talk a little bit ATT. What went into that decision, and do you feel that that was the best decision for you to make right now?
Yeah, and I touched on it a little bit already. It just comes down to, evolution in life. People have always said that for whatever reason, I've been able to, adapt to certain situations. As a fighter, I was a decent fighter. As a coach, I'm a decent coach. I do like improv comedy, and I'm decent at a lot of. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, and the only reason why I can do that is because I'm very willing to do what I need to do in order to make it, and I adjust and I try to reinvent myself all the time. And in order to reinvent yourself, you got to give some things up. And I don't feel like I can grow much more with American Top Team. I just didn't feel like I could, and I didn't feel like I could really dig into a fighter and create a champion the way I would want to, or maximize some of their potentials the way I'd want to, because it requires time and effort. Like I just don't believe that they can do it, especially nowadays with how sophisticated MMA is. It's very difficult to do it. Just like, okay, here's a big room of all these really good fighters, and then you take a fighter who's like in the middle and just let them survive. They're not going to get much better. I don't believe they will. I think it requires a lot of attention. And there are some fighters that I work with that are in the middle that I believe in, that I believe could be good if they got the attention, but I'm not able to give it to them. So for me, I felt like if I leave, it's not fair to the team for me to go, all right, I'm going to take these random people and try to invest in them and make them good and leave all our champions starving. So I didn't think it was fair to the team that I did that. And it wasn't fair to me that I wasn't happy doing what I'd love to do. So I just figured it was time to go.
Now, going forward, do you have any goals in place? Would you potentially want to you're a hilarious guy. Would you potentially maybe want to get in comedy full time, or maybe acting, or maybe opening up your own gym, have your own school, and train fighters out of it?
Well, I'm definitely not opening up my own school. That was something I've been there, done. I had 2-3 locations for 12 years, for the better part of 12 years prior to actually being a full-time coach at American Top Team. So I definitely don't want to do that again. Again, reinvent myself, adapt to the climate. But what I would like to do now is do more analyst work, definitely get into acting. See, a lot of people, know me for doing the comedy stuff, but I really love doing drama. So I wanted to, and I know that sounds weird, but I really love acting. And then what I would, and still coaching too, but I want to coach from a more freelance perspective. So, kind of like, the late great Emmanuel Stewart. If you wanted to work with him, you had to hire him. And that's kind of how I want to do my, operate my system. If somebody wants to work with me, they can hire me.
Awesome. Well, Dean, I wish you the best of luck, man. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I really appreciate it, brother.
Not a problem, man. Anytime. I got your back. And good luck to you too.